North Smithfield Town Council meeting, January 3rd, 2023. Madam Clerk, can you lead us in a prayer and a pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcomes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara? Mr. Osier?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
Here. Open forum pursuant to 42-46-6. There's only one? Okay.
Does anybody else want to sign up to speak? Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road. First, I have a couple of questions to ask. On the agenda tonight, under 4B, you have a new topic, and it's discussion by council vote or other action on a status report, progress report on completion of specific items. Is that explicit enough to meet the requirements of the Open Meetings Act? Because I read decisions from them where, like, for instance, the superintendent was giving a report and the building principals were, and they were just putting superintendent's report, and they listed it as an action item, but they didn't say what he was going to be discussing. So I think you're supposed to tell the public what it is you're going to be discussing. So if this is like this, if you put it like this and then put colon and then put the items that you are discussing after the word specific items, colon, and then list those items, you'd be covered. But I think this lacks specificity, and I think it would be in violation of the OMA.
So, Mr. Clifford, just to let you know, I believe this is something Mr. Beauregard added on during his time, is that if there was anything to follow up on, it would be listed just so it doesn't get forgotten about.
Okay.
So it's going to be on the agenda, but if there's nothing listed, then we're just going to skip right over it.
All right, so it is going to say specific items and then colon and
Correct.
then list it. Okay,
Mhm.
great. Second thing was the appointments that you've been making. As you've been making them, I think it's a good idea if you send out the rules and regulations for that particular committee to the people you're appointing. And one in particular that, as a former chair of one of the committees, I would have appreciated having my members reminded of, is that it requires attendance. You can't miss more than 3 meetings. And then the chair has to forward the name. And it puts the chair in an awkward position if they haven't even heard that rule yet. So if you could kind of highlight that in some type of notification to them. Third, I saw on the agenda the Charter Review Commission. And I'm just going to say, on the last Charter Review Commission, some of you sat there and were on the board at that time, and the decision was made to put basically every question that was recommended on the ballot of the ones that went on the ballot. Not all of them got on the ballot because it was becoming too long. But Tommy McGee argued at that time that he didn't like that idea at all, that it should have to be approved by 3 people on the committee, and you shouldn't be voting just to say, okay, we'll let the people choose, because the people interpret it that if it's on being on the ballot as a charter revision, you're voting to put it on there somehow or other conveys to the residents of the town that you approve of it and are recommending it. And Tommy was adamant about saying no. And I know some of you voted for certain things, and when you voted to put them on the agenda, you said, I don't support this myself, but I'll go along and put it on the agenda. So I think if you're going to have a Charter Review Commission, you should at least not, refrain from putting things on the agenda, on the ballot that you don't fully support, because it's misleading to the public when you do put it out there. The other thing is, you can also be a charter commission yourself. You don't have to appoint a charter commission. And there was a comment made at one of the meetings that it was surprised there weren't charter review commission questions on the last ballot. Charter is not supposed to be reviewed and changed every other week. It's a lasting document. And I've lived in this town all my life, and I can think of like maybe 6 charter commissions in the 70 years I've been living in this town. So I think you have to take it lightly, and if there's something that's come to your attention that is missing in the charter, that you need in the charter, then I'd suggest you make yourselves the committee, and those members who have those issues, just bring them forward and put them out there. And, you know, but rather than searching for people to serve on a charter commission. And again, I'll go back to one of the committees I was on was the Charter Commission. Guy showed up for first meeting, he showed up for maybe one other meeting, missed every other meeting, and showed up to vote on which proposals were going forward. And that went against, it kind of drove everybody on the committee crazy who had been showing up. So that's why it's important to stress that something has to happen after you've missed 3 meetings, for regardless of what committee you're on. And the last thing is the resolution for the MBRTF. When I read that over again tonight, I didn't have a chance to read it in depth because it comes online late and I didn't get to it until late. But does that limit that MBRTF supervision to just the bond issues from 2016? Because it refers to the original document for 2016, but I don't know if it actually says in that first document the bond issues of 2016. I mean, the way it was worded, it says municipal and school. Well, you can't continually have that same group handling every project, or I would think you wouldn't want them to. I mean, they've got to finish the one that they've got that's been out there since 2016. So my question is it meant to be the way it's worded, or do you need to change it so it identifies the bond issues of 2016? And the only one that's not complete at this point is the police station. And lastly, with regard to the police station, been making the suggestion time and again, maybe some of you, if you're willing to listen to it at this point. In 2016, we bypassed an opportunity to have the council meet with the architect who had done the proposal for the police station, Eric Army from Studio Major, and you dismissed the building committee that was in place at the time and didn't give them the opportunity to appear before you to, you know, promote their case or explain other things that could be done to bring the cost down. I'd like to suggest that you still consider having a meeting. Maybe it's not a full committee meeting, maybe it's just the police chief and the chair, or the police chief and 2 committee members from the town council, meet with Eric Army and the chief and review those original plans. Because I know we're all looking at the $18 million thing and we're thinking, oh, it's gonna be a federal grant money, that's okay. I'm not happy with how the federal government's spending that grant money right now. I mean, they're putting up a lot of things that aren't really necessary. So just because but it's still coming out of our pockets, you know, and I think we lose sight of that when we hear, oh, it's federal money, so okay, we spend $18 million. We don't need an $18 million station. And I really think if you could do it for 5, I was sorry to see that instead of asking for a $5 million grant to finish the police station and renovate it, we asked for, you know, moved on to Project B and jumped to Scouters Hall for a senior center, which I don't think should be the priority. I think that they're in an unsafe building. And we still, from 2016 to today, haven't spent a penny or do anything to make that a secure building for them. So I'd like you to consider doing those things, and I think the time and effort of meeting with the chief and the architect, because at one of the meetings, Chief Lafferty actually said to me, I don't really know what was in it at the end, because it was revised so many times and they were banting about so many ideas that I don't even know what was in it at the time. But yeah. Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak in open forum? All right, next item, old business A, discussion by council vote or other action on 2022-23 townwide roadway improvements. 1, professional consulting engineering services authorization of extension of contract. Addendum 2, Pare Corporation.
Good evening. There's an ad alternate, when we went out to bid, there's an ad alternate on Pound Hill Road in the area of Dorcourt. That for years has had a lot of drainage issues. So We've already bid this to Osier, has the bid for $215,000. But that is minus the drainage work and the additional engineering that we've had to incur to try and remedy how we're going to get the water off this road. It's a unique situation down there. So Pare, who is our engineer, continuing to do our engineering for our road work, has submitted another addendum for $9,870, which I respectfully request that you approve so that we can move forward and in the spring, hopefully bring this to a conclusion for the residents in that area.
And would these funds come out of the road reserves?
Well, we could take them out of the road work. I spoke to the administrator today and the finance director, and I would like to lean towards, we have about 40,000 in professional services in reserves. I'd like to start chipping away at my reserve money and put that 9,000 back into asphalt work and drainage work. So if the drainage work has to go out to bid, I'd really prefer to use that work towards, that money towards the drainage work and start chipping away this 9,000 out of professional services. But I'm gonna pass that one to the finance director. That's certainly her call on that one.
I agree with Mr. Pendergast. It will come out of professional services.
Mr. Pendergast, I just have a quick question. So they'll be developing, it says, development of drainage system alternatives and development of estimated construction costs. So you've kind of hit a roadblock, no pun intended, and they need to finish this work before you can move forward with the completion of the project to remove the water in that area?
Correct.
Okay.
Right now, it's before DEM. We're waiting for their approval because of the wetlands issues in that area.
Okay.
We're looking at several options, which it will take me all night to explain. But in any event, we've incurred additional work for the engineering company, so this is what that number is.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve $9,870 to Pare Engineering for the continuation of the drainage design along portions of Pound Hill Road. Excuse me.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Could we just have, for the administrator to, authorization to sign?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to have the administrator approve this Pare contract in the amount of $9,870.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. All right, old business discussion by council vote, excuse me, or other action on status/progress report on completion of specific items. There's nothing listed here, so we'll be moving right over that. New business. Discussion by vote or other action on town council rules. I just put these on the agenda just so we could be familiar with them. I know it's been some time since we reviewed. So I was just wondering if everyone had a chance to review them and if anyone had any comments or changes or,
Madam President,
yes?
if you go to number 21, rule number 21, the regular meeting of the town council shall be held at a location determined by the town council on the third Monday of each month. Administrative council workshops shall be held every first Monday of the month at 6:45 at a location to be determined by the council. That's kind of archaic now. We don't really do it that way. Every meeting is a council meeting now. It's not, there's no special meetings, there's no, I mean, they're all, there's no workshops. We used to only have open forum during once a month, but now we changed it. We allow open forum at every meeting, and we don't really do it as it is in the plan, in the rules and regulations anymore.
So do we want to just change that to 21, reading that the town council meetings will be held on the first and third Monday at 6:45
Yeah, that's what I'm
at a
thinking.
location? So can we just make that change? Anyone else?
Madam President, on the open forum, I think it's like part 1B, I guess, if you had to say. I think it's where it's talking about open forum, or just point 1. It says the council will assemble for its 2 monthly meetings to hear citizens in an open forum pursuant to RIGL 4246-6D, and then goes on a little bit. I think it would make sense to have 2 open forums. I've seen other communities do this as well. The first one is on anything in general, just anything you want to bring up. And then the second one can be specifically specific towards issues that are on the agenda. That way, people should be willing to, if there is a question that comes up, it would allow the council to answer questions. If it's not under that section of open forum and it's under the more generalized version, then the council may not be as prepared, or people may not be as prepared to give an answer at that meeting. And it could be addressed in a future meeting if it comes up. So I think it may make sense to just have 2 open forums, and what it looks like on the agenda we can figure out, but.
Doug, on that, a lot of towns, that's what they do. They'll have an open forum at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items. And then at the end of the meeting for anything else that they want to, that somebody wants to bring up. So that that is practice in a lot of different councils. I don't have a problem with that, but then if people want to come in and they want to be heard, they're going to have to sit through a long meeting just to be heard.
I mean,
Yeah.
This way it gets, and it doesn't hold up meetings that we want to get through, or sometimes it can be very monthly.
I don't think you necessarily need to have it at the end of the meeting. I think you could have them both at the beginning of the meeting and just, have, if it's on an agenda item, however it gets carved out, however it would look. But if it's on a specific agenda item, then everyone should know that they should be willing to answer a question. If it's not on the agenda, then it sets the expectation that they may not know about it, or you have to go look into it further for a future meeting or for the next time to provide follow-up if it comes up. I think to have it at the end may be a little bit, depends on the agenda length. If it's a really long agenda, I wouldn't want to have someone sit here if they want to just talk about something for 2 minutes and just have their voice be heard on something. So we can figure out the agenda piece later, but I think having it makes sense.
Yeah, because if we did put the topics of the agenda at the beginning and the non-agenda topics at the end of the meeting, and it looked like it was going to be a long meeting, we could always move that up, but I think it's just to have a placeholder. Should we just say where we want to put them in the rules, just so?
I think you should. Right now, open forum is the first item after roll call, so that has its place. So if you want to make it A and B at that time, agenda, non-agenda, or you want to make open forum for agenda items only at that point, and put an open forum for non-agenda items at the end, and move it up on a case-by-case basis, that's up to the council. But obviously, non-agenda items are going to be talking about things that are not on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it almost makes sense to have it at the end, because we're going to be taking notes and going off with those notes and coming back at another time.
That is a way many towns do it, but it's up to the council.
So do we have to do a roll call for every change we make tonight, or
No.
just at the end?
I think unless if there's somebody who thinks that they shouldn't be, or if we have real discourse on them, then I think you'd have to separate them. Maybe you come up with a list,
Okay,
and if nobody wants to separate the list, you could take a vote and see if there are enough votes on the whole list.
okay.
I mean, rather than go individual.
So I just want to make sure we don't make this cumbersome for people. I mean, that's I think your point, DJ, is to make sure that we can answer as many questions as possible, which I think is admirable, and I think we should be shooting for that. But what I don't want to do is have people feel that they, right now it's easy to come at the very beginning. They don't have to stay for the whole meeting if they're disinterested in what we're going through for whatever reason. So I'm just curious as to how we would do it on a week-by-week basis before we commit to something here.
Well, that's why I was saying, like, you could have, like, you know, as the solicitor just said, like, an A and B option at the beginning of the meeting. You know, to have somebody sit and wait for the whole meeting, I agree, they may not want to, or they may have a time constraint in which they may not be able to. So I think having it at the beginning, you could just clearly delineate the two. I mean, I've sat through a lot of meetings up here when I was first on the council, and I watched almost every meeting after I wasn't elected, and, you know, there's a lot of times people come up and they want to talk about something on the agenda, but there's, you know, that may be the only time they have to, but people may have questions, they may not have questions, you know, if it's on the agenda, we should be able to talk about it, you know, at any point in time, or answer a quick question if they can't stick around. Not every agenda item has a public hearing attached to it. And, you know, then the other solution is to just recognize people as the meeting is progressing, but, you know, there can be, you know, that, if we're talking cumbersome, that can also be cumbersome as well, because then, you know, you have to go through the whole procedure of opening it and closing it and et cetera. So I think just even having it at the beginning might be the easiest way, and if it's just something where it's a quick note that says, we'll look into it and we'll put it on the next agenda, or, you know, we'll follow up and, you know, it's gonna take a month to research that issue or something like that. I think it's just, it creates a space where people can know that, okay, I'm just gonna talk about something, it may not even be on the council's radar yet, but I wanna put it on the council's radar, or I want people to know it's happening in some area of town, or it's impacting me directly. And that's just kind of where I'm going with it. I don't know best about the agenda. I know some communities do put it at the end, but I know some of our meetings run really long, and so I don't think that putting it at the end makes the most sense, but, I mean, I'll leave it up to the council. I just think having it delineated makes the most sense.
I don't know, it seems like I get where you're going with this, but it seems more like it's a solution, looking for a problem. Has there been a problem with open forum? I mean,
I don't know if we've always answered people's questions as they've come up. I mean, I know you don't know what someone's gonna ask, so I understand that someone may not wanna answer something. But, you know, I know a lot of other communities do it, and I think it makes sense to do it that way. If the council decides they just want to leave it as an open forum and that's the way it is, then that's fine. I'm just proposing it. I'm not saying we need to do it by any means. I think it would make sense to, but, you know, I'm gonna leave it up to what the council decides ultimately, you know?
I would be happy to try it, and if we find out that we don't need two different items, that's really not working out, we can always come back and revisit the rules, and, but, you know, if we can answer some questions, whether it be on the agenda or not, it's more beneficial to us, so,
Well, can I just logistically, like in my head, I'm trying to think how this would work. So something's on the agenda, and one of the people in the audience wants to speak to that item. And it could be anywhere on the agenda, right? Is that, I mean, there's no restriction, correct, Mr. Osier?
No.
So, then how do you manage a discussion? It becomes a full-blown discussion about something? Or, do you know what I'm saying? Like, then it almost sounds to me like it would be a public hearing.
I think you'd have to know,
You
okay,
know?
this is a little more than a quick question. If it's like a full, like, a lot of times you see people come and they'll come at the beginning of the meeting,
Yeah.
and then they'll say, I can only stick around, you know, my sitter's leaving, you know, I have to do dinner, I have to do something, and then they want to leave, but they don't want to stick around till item 5D or C or whatever of new business, which is potentially 3 hours away. And, you know, that does happen, and a lot of times, not this council, but councils will say, you know, well, we have this on the agenda and we're willing to discuss it at that time, even though there is no public hearing necessarily scheduled. So I just thought that this would be a solution that would allow people to come. You could have a quick exchange if it's a quick question, or you can just note it as well. But, you know, sometimes people do have questions and they want to speak, and that they may not be able to stick around as well. So I'm just trying to find a solution to stuff I've seen, but we can just leave one, but maybe just set the expectation, if the council doesn't want to have to, that if somebody asks us a question, then we'll address it and answer it if it's on the agenda.
That's a good way to do it, yeah.
any other discussion on that one? Does anyone else have anything else on the rules?
No?
I just wanted to revisit a couple of them, just so to make sure everyone has read it and reviewed it. It's kind of just housekeeping items, so basically number 4, that everyone has the right to speak, but should someone be speaking, that they shouldn't be interrupted by another council member. I just want to make sure that that's understood. And then, let's see. And then the sidebar conversations, when we have people speaking or while we're also having conversation ourselves, that the sidebar conversations are kept to a minimum. And then the last one is that every town council member has the obligation to read and understand the contents of his or her packet prior to the meeting, just so we're prepared, and especially if we are going to be doing two open forums, you know, we need to be prepared should there be any questions on any of the agenda items. So those I just wanted to kind of bring out to make sure that everyone was aware of it. Anyone else have any other they want to bring out?
If nobody else has anything, if it's okay with you, Madam President. 16, Rule 16, it talks about new business and agenda item requests by members of the town council must be submitted by 4 p.m. on the 4th business day prior, so it's a Wednesday. I know the deadline now seems to be 12 o'clock to allow info to be, 12 p.m. to allow info to be attached to the links. I think, correct, Joe? So I would think that we should probably change that to reflect 12 p.m. Just to keep it updated with the way that we're currently doing things. It's just a minor change.
And this says Tuesday for a Monday meeting, but it's Wednesday, right? So we'll change that to Wednesday.
Wednesday,
12 p.m. Does anyone else have any other changes or anything they want to discuss?
So where was it left with Doug's recommendation? Where was that left?
I mean, we can do a roll call on it if we're split on it, but if that's the only one that we have a little bit of differences on. Does anyone want to make a motion to,
No, I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, if Doug, if it's worth trying. That's what, I
I mean, we
don't,
can always come back and change it if it's
Yeah.
not working.
Yeah.
Try it for a couple meetings.
yeah.
Let's try it.
But at least if it's on the agenda, people will know that they should get answers to, and that if we can't give them a complete answer, at least we can get back to them. Do we have to do any kind of roll call or anything on any of the changes?
You need to review her notes, so you know what you're voting on, and you want to vote on all those items.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one I have is number 21. I'm sorry if they're not in order right now.
Can I interrupt real quick, though? Make a suggestion? Do we really even have to vote on this? Because we could just put that on the agenda as that, just like we put, just like when earlier in the meeting, you mentioned that I added the part on the agenda for specific items. It wasn't on the rules or anything. We just decided to do that, and we could do it. So we could try it out without putting it in the rules yet for a couple of meetings and see how that goes.
Yeah, but there's other changes that we're making
Yeah.
too, so might as well just do them all at the same time.
Okay.
So I can read them to you, and you can let me know what you would like to do with them. The first one is number 21. We're
Yeah.
changing,
Joanne, can you use the
Can
mic?
you-
sorry, am I there? Yeah, okay. So the first one is number 21. We're changing the wording to say the regular meeting of the town council shall be held at the location to be determined by the town council on the first and third Monday of each month. I'm going to eliminate the paragraph underneath that,
Mhm.
but I will add the time into on number 21. The second one is we would like to, DJ's suggestion was to add open forum with agenda items and an open forum without agenda items. The next one is changing the time from 12 o'clock, to 12 o'clock PM on Wednesday for the deadline. And that was number, I think, 16.
I think that's it, yeah. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve those changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the rules of order.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara? Mr. Osier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. All right, discussion by council vote or other action on substation tax status at Iron Mine Solar Farm. Mr. Beauregard?
Yeah. Jen, thank you for coming. I just had a couple of questions regarding the substation. This is something that Administrator Zelinski and I have spoken about in the past. The questions that I have is, in December of 2021, the solar farm on Iron Mine Hill, for whatever reason, they had their reasons, but they went live with only a few days left of the year. And for doing that, they had to pay taxes for the whole year. Tangible taxes. In order for them to go live, the substation had to be up and running. That was the only way they could feed juice into the system, is if they had the substation up and running. There are tangible taxes on that. Would that same thing apply, that if they, even though it was only a few days left of the year, for the substation, they would have to pay the full year's worth of taxes? Now, one of the estimates that I heard getting thrown around was that the substation was built at a cost of $20 million. That seems like a lot of money to me, but that's one of the numbers that I heard. And at a tangible tax rate of 42.62, that would be a tax of $852,400. Seems, I don't know, I'm just basing it off of that $120 million number. It could be less, could be more. This was in December of 2021. We're in January of 2023. I haven't seen I haven't seen those, any money on our tax rolls. It would have been nice to know that that was there during the last budget hearing, that we, I mean, the budget, you know, we're going over the budget. Could you explain why we're taxing the solar farm accordingly, and rightfully so, but we did not tax National Grid at the time, which is now Rhode Island Energy?
So what happens is they have to, well, the National Grid, Rhode Island Energy, they need to report that as on their annual tangible return. So when they returned it, they had new assets, but I'm currently looking into it. There were a few issues that happened. There wasn't a permit pull, and that's how I'm notified when things are added to, like a home or anything. So there was no permit pulled. I wasn't notified by, like, through the permit process. And then when National Grid, tangibles are kind of you take it like as on your word. So when they reported, their list is kind of vague. They basically just write the address, parcel, acres, and a number. And I'm currently trying to get in contact with them for a more detailed list. And then on this Thursday, hopefully, Alan Booth's partner is coming with me to help me assess that substation. So
Okay.
it's currently being looked at. A lot of things were kind of missed through National Grid and permit process, and there's a lot that we're looking at right now.
Because if those numbers are right, then the tangible taxes on the substation are gonna be more than double the income for the town that the actual solar field would be.
Well, I can't really say that that's going to be the value of that substation, not necessarily how much they paid for it.
Right.
What's going to be the
Exactly.
assessment.
Right.
But once
But it will be in the millions of dollars. It might not be 20, but it will be in the millions of dollars.
I'm not sure. I don't wanna say a number and then, but once I have the number, everyone will be notified.
Okay.
Can I ask one more thing? Any correspondence you send to them, I would definitely have it registered so that you know they get it and they can't say anything about it. Cover yourself.
I've called them several times. I left, several messages. Right before Christmas, I sent a certified letter. As far as I know, it's in a, obviously it's dated. Hopefully they can get in touch with me. I did receive an email. I came back this evening and I did receive, I emailed, I found an email address today and I emailed her and she did get back to me. She said she was gonna look into it and contact me tomorrow. So I'm hoping that someone will open that gate on Thursday for me and Alan Booth's partner, Jim Booth.
All right, and just so people understand, the substation is not a building like this. It's, if you could drive down Greenville Road and you look at, you're coming from Woonsocket heading towards the high school, on your left, there's a substation there. It's not a brick and mortar, it's all like wires and utility type stuff. There might be a small building, but it's not, that's not the,
Right.
you know. All right, thank you very much.
I just have one more question. So then, I guess the other concerning piece of this is not pulling permits.
Yeah.
So I guess we should be getting the building official involved, or?
I just want to interject, I'm sorry. I did speak to the fire marshal today, and it wasn't inspected either. So not only did they not pull a permit, it was not inspected. So there's an array of issues here right now. The fire marshal is going to call me tomorrow because he's going to check with the previous fire marshal, make sure that he didn't miss anything with Brian Gartland. But for sure, the zoning building official said he cannot find a permit for them either. So if they pulled a permit, it would have been an e-permitting. It would have went to the fire marshal next. It would have went to tax collections. There's a process that goes through the e-permitting system. If it never triggered a permit, it just fell through the cracks and never proceeded to the next step.
What is
So-
a, Administrator, you were on planning before, what would a permit cost? Is it a lot of money for a permit for something like that, or?
Well, permits from a residential is based on the materials that go into it. So the number you used, 20 million, I think, I'm not a tax assessor, so I don't want to go there, but one would imagine it's the amount, the cost of the materials. Can you include labor? I'm not sure, because this is a substation. It's not putting up a shed in someone's yard. This is why we need experts to come in. The disheartening thing is no permit was pulled, so now there's late permitting fees will be applied to the permitting process. So we're gonna have to see how this works out. So the fire marshal, the current fire marshal is Fire Marshal Mowry. Captain Gartland was the previous fire, just for the record, in case people start getting names confused. So that's enough at this point, in case it takes a whole different course.
And it's National Grid that's responsible for this. That's their property, right?
Not in Rhode Island.
Well,
it's
Rhode Island Energy. Rhode Island Energy.
National Grid.
No, it was.
My company? That's not my company. It was built by them, but they have, National Grid has the deed to that property, I believe.
Yes, it was built by someone else. Once it was built, that little, it wasn't a little, that section of land in the substation was deeded over to National Grid.
Right. So they're responsible for the tax.
They're responsible, and they should have notified me on their 10-year return of that new asset.
And De Pasquale should have pulled the permit. Okay. And the e-permitting is usually a very well-received and, you know, it's a good system. So I can't imagine that it didn't trigger anything. It wasn't pulled, I would say, from the beginning. So we have two culprits.
So can we put this under that progress report for the next meeting? Just so we can have some sort of update on that, on both pieces of it?
Yep.
Okay.
And may I, I'm just curious why the building inspector wouldn't have known that something like that was being built.
You're looking at me.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not the
just
building inspector,
curious.
but
No.
I can tell you that during this entire process, we've had 2 building inspectors. So we had a previous one who retired, and we have a new one.
right.
So, the current building inspector is out there driving around, assuring us that there are no batteries on the site, none were visible. So, at this point, we just have to do more research into why, whether it be the grid or Rhode Island Energy, did not pull a permit.
Okay, well, I think it's De Pasquale's construction company that would have required the permit, right? Yeah.
If
so-
they-
It
yes.
it sounds like the issue is in the transfer of when it was being built and whoever did the original construction. At some point, there should have been a permit pulled or triggered. It sounds like that whole process got missed completely for whatever reason. I can't, it's the first time I'm hearing it, and so I do appreciate having a continuation on this. I mean, it seems kind of it's not interesting, but it's just kind of, I don't know how something like that would get missed. You know, it's not like a shed where somebody can build behind their house and tuck away behind a tree or something like that. You know,
Yeah, and
it's
this
a pretty big dollar amount. You know, it's lost revenue to the town. You know, you don't even know, I mean, how do you know that there isn't any batteries that are being stored there if the gate's locked? It sounds like, and I mean, he's just driving
No,
around, right?
because
So-
he has driven up there recently, and he has not seen, the batteries would be somewhat around the size of a Conex trailer. They're huge, they're big.
And are we doing going forward, I think we're having a lot of side conversations,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'd like
We
to
just-
rein it in, you know. Are we doing anything to prevent this type of stuff from happening going forward into the future? I mean, you know, this town also has a history of not keeping good records, missing permits being issued, not being known about, like stuff like that. Like, are we doing anything more proactively to ensure that there's a checklist at least being followed? I mean, do we need to rely on the system if it's not working at times on certain projects? I mean, do we need to have more structure in place going forward so we don't get into a situation like this again?
I think there's like 2 issues here. One is with the building department and having the person pull the permit.
Yes.
As for the honor system, that's with the tangible tax
Yep.
returns. That's, like, I have the right to go out, when I get a return, I have the right to go out and inspect the property if I feel that that assessment or what's reported doesn't seem correct to me. I have the opportunity to go out and check and say, okay, this seems low, why did you report this? You obviously have more equipment than you're reporting. But as for the permit issue, and that would be a separate.
Yeah, no, I know you wouldn't have any
So
oversight onto that.
if I may, Counselor, a developer, a contractor, the landowner is responsible for pulling the permit. So if you're a developer, you should not break ground or start to do it without a permit being issued. Now, is the developer responsible for that? If you wanted to do some electrical service in your house and you didn't pull a permit, it's not the electrician's responsibility to pull that permit. They will check to make sure that there's a permit, but ultimately the responsibility lies with the property owner.
I disagree slightly. You're right in some sense, but a lot of places will offer to pull the permit for you for an additional fee.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about potentially leased land here, I'm assuming. That land was leased out from an original property owner. So I would imagine that a company would, if they're building something with millions of dollars attached, or something as big and large as this, that they would want to make sure. Now, it sounds like they didn't for whatever reason, to avoid paying taxes, to avoid doing whatever. I don't want to speculate. But it would imagine that there should be some type of process in place, especially on these larger scale projects, that we make sure that we absolutely know whether you have to drive out there and visually check it to make sure that things are being done. I mean, it just seems like it's a lot of money we're talking about, and, you know, the last couple budget cycles, and I'm sure the next couple, we've always talked about how tight the budget is, and, you know, every little dollar helps, and it's just interesting that it's just missed, that's all. I know, I don't want to place blame on anybody without knowing all the facts, but it sounds like we probably need a better process in place to ensure that the permits are being pulled appropriately.
I would say that the inspections fall under the domain of the planning department as well as the building official. They could work in conjunction to make sure these things are done. I won't mention, I think you know what the large development in our town was, which was not inspected in the past, a very large development. So I believe that the planner and the building official should work in conjunction. We have a new planner and we have a new building official. So I can tell you from this point on, I cannot see this happening again.
Well, the bottom line is we're gonna get to the bottom of it, right?
That's the bottom line.
I was just wondering if we should ask the building inspector and the planning director to come to a meeting just to express our concerns and to make sure that we're all on the same page and we can offer recommendations that we would feel comfortable going forward for any project, regardless of its size.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So can we, as well as putting this on that agenda item, can we also invite the planner and the building official to come to the
I'll
next?
take care of that.
Thank you.
That's an administrative request.
Yeah, that's what I was asking,
Mhm.
just asking Joanne to put it on the agenda. Any other questions for Jennifer?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Next item, discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to town boards and commissions. Number 1, Asset Management Commission, resignation for Mr. Osier. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I guess I really did enjoy sitting on the Asset Management Commission. Paul was a great chair. And being on the council, I didn't think it made sense to serve on both at this time. It doesn't mean that I won't attend meetings and still look to be involved, but it's a great commission. I think it's actually underutilized by the council. It's written into the charter, and I know we didn't always get it seemed like the support that was needed to make sure that we were actually living up to the charge. And so I would hope that we could incorporate it going forward into future meetings. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Osier?
So moved.
Second? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Conservation Commission?
Madam
appointed-
President?
I'm sorry?
No, I was just gonna nominate somebody.
Appointed by the TA with TC approval, a one 3-year term that expires 11/30/2025.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Not at this time.
Okay. Juvenile Hearing Board, 1 3-year term that expires 11/30/2025. That's appointed by the town council. Anyone have any nominations?
Well, we have in our packet, I believe, let me make sure this is for this
It is.
Timothy
Mhm.
Gernon, and he has requested to be placed on the Juvenile Hearing Board for 1 3-year term expiring 11/30/2025, and he has been asked to submit his name by the current chair of that committee, so I'd like to move to have Timothy Gernon placed on the 1 3-year term.
Any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Planning Board, we have, that's also appointed by the town council. We have a second alternate. It's 1-year term that expires on 11/30/2023.
Madam
Yeah.
President, I'm sorry. I'd like to nominate Cynthia Roberts for the second alternate 1-year term expiring 11/30/2023.
Do we have any other nominations?
Madam President,
Yes?
I would like to nominate Ariana Ramos for that position, whose application is in our packet and who sits in the audience tonight. I always think it shows a little more respect for the position and the council when people actually show up when these appointments are being made. So thank you for coming.
And can I put in a nomination?
We're not gonna do seconds yet, I
We're
don't
not doing
believe, but
seconds yet. Okay, is there any other nominations for the second alternate planning board? All right. So can I have, so there was a motion for Cynthia Roberts. Is there anyone that wants to second?
I'll second.
Do I do the other one now for a second, and then do roll call, or?
I think you can do one of two ways. You can take the second and then see where the votes fall, or you can see if the votes fall for the first one, and that would eliminate the second person.
No.
So do them both now for a second?
You could do that.
Okay,
You could do that and call an election, and then the people will announce the name they vote for.
okay. All right, and can I have a second for Cynthia Roberts, please? Did you already do Cynthia? All right, I'm sorry, Ariana Ramos. Does anyone have a second? All right, and we'll do a roll call by name, please.
Yes.
You just speak the name, you just pick the name of who you're voting for.
well, is there any discussion, or?
Any further discussion?
I would just like to say that regarding Councilwoman Hamilton's nomination of Cynthia Roberts, I just feel that we have somebody else that has also applied for the position that would be more qualified to take the town in the right direction.
And I feel that she's here shows a real interest. One of the things is putting your name, but I don't think the first way, she's taking an interest.
Any further discussion? Can we do a roll call by name, please?
Want to do Cynthia Roberts first and do a,
They're just gonna do a roll call, and
Oh,
they're gonna
okay.
say who they're voting for.
okay. Mr. Beauregard?
Ariana Ramos.
Ms. Hamilton?
Cynthia Roberts?
Mrs. O'Hara?
Ariana Roberts.
Mr. Osier?
Cynthia Roberts.
Ms. Alves?
Cynthia Roberts. And could you just reach out to, there's two other applicants, and there's also another applicant for another position. Could you just reach out to them and let them know the other openings that are available in town? All right, thank you so much.
Sorry.
Don't give up.
Don't
please.
leave us.
There's a lot of different opportunities that are available. Water Supply Review Committee, appointed by Town Council.
Yep, so I actually had a lot of interest in this, and so there didn't seem to be any formal application process. So I'm gonna list the people, and I'll leave it up to you, Madam President, how you wanna go about it. For the member of the Town Council, I would like to nominate myself to serve on that, in that 2 years, or that 60-day term. I know it says 2 years because it's just the longest option in the resolution. The member of the Planning Board would be Gary Pilati. The member of the Zoning Board would be Gail Burlingoff. I don't have anybody for the Conservation Commission just yet. And then I actually had 3 people for the public. One was Christian De Rendes, Leanne Gillette, and also Cynthia Roberts, and I know there's a few other people that have reached out to me that I'm waiting to hear back on. So I'm not sure how you want to go about voting on them individually, or if you want to just.
Madam President, I would just suggest that you vote on each one of those spots individually. This is different than the last.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, no, I agree. And I'm also going to ask if we could extend it. I know the solicitor and I originally talked about at the beginning of this, if we had a lot of interest that, we could amend the resolution to increase it to 7 members total. So I think there's enough interest in the public to at least include another 2 seats to make it 7 for the water supply, yeah.
The only, we're talking about the water supply board
Committee, yeah.
committee, I'd like to make sure I check into that. wanna make sure, just wanna check. I believe that is strictly a council.
Yeah, we probably need another resolution at the next meeting to update it,
Can't do
but,
that today.
no, I wasn't saying today, I was just gonna say, ask if we, just to let everyone know that I'm gonna ask David to increase it.
Okay, so, so the member of the town council for 60 days would be Doug Osier. Do we have a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
No.
Yes.
No?
Yes,
Can I vote?
you should be.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can vote.
Of course you can vote.
Oh, I got skipped, so I wasn't sure. Yes. I understand why, but I can resign from a board, I can't join.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the member of the planning board for a 60-day term is Gary Pilardi. Can I have-
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please. Or discuss, is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
No.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes. And one member from the zoning board for a 60-day term is Gail Berlinghoff. Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. And then the member of the Conservation Commission, we're gonna skip that one for now.
Yeah, I don't have that one yet.
Do you wanna do the public members, or do you wanna wait and see if we can, if not, you can make the motion for that one?
Do you think at the next meeting we can make the motion, we can expand it? So then maybe we'll just wait, that way, we can just expand it. I don't have a problem making, putting somebody up today, and then just including the other two from people, and, go from there. We can do that if you want, that's fine with me too.
How do you wanna handle it?
Yeah, I'm fine with putting somebody up today, and then,
Okay,
so I'll just, go in the order in which somebody reached out to me. So the first one would be, Christian, De Resendes, for the first open spot.
there's been a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. So Joanne, if we can put this on the next agenda also?
Yep.
Thank you. Discussion by council vote or other action on establishing a charter review commission. Mr. Osier?
So I put this on the last meeting and continued it. I'm gonna leave it up to the council on how they wanna go about it. I know I was just looking through the charter and, without getting too specific at this time, if we decide to go down it, with a committee, I think what I've learned is if there's a committee in which people seem to have a passion about, we don't have a problem filling it. If we do it as the council is gonna be the one serving as this committee, I think we should call it out separately, not waste council meeting time during them. And they have trying to have two meetings within one. I think it should be its own separate agenda item, just so people are aware we can actually focus on it instead of trying to cram it into a new or an old business agenda item. There's inconsistencies in the charter in terms of language. I know one example, not to use the solicitor, but, him and I have talked is, there's language at which, the school committee solicitor is, at the discretion of the council, which follows a lot of towns, and ours is coterminous for 2 years. And, I think it's little verbiages that need to be probably tweaked or re-examined, not, maybe there's no changes that come from, maybe there is. Some communities, they have charter review commissions that are actually standing. I know Newport's one of them. I know it's been a few years since we last did it. I think it just makes sense to have new sets of eyes looking at it. And I just kind of wanted to see what the council's interest was in it, before, I had the solicitor take time to draft up a resolution. If the council decides to serve as, the charter review commission, then I know that's different than, having to have him make another committee, but, I just kind of wanted to get the conversation started, because I know these things take time, and there's, you know, it can take up to a year plus in some instances, depending on what you're looking to do, so, yeah, it's just kind of it in summary.
Madam President?
Mhm.
As strange as this may sound, I agree with Mr. Clifford, what he said earlier today, that I think it's, the council should really handle this instead of setting up a whole other commission. If we have any issues that we think that that needs to be addressed in the charter, then we can bring it up, we can discuss it, and we can decide to put it on the ballot. I have one particular issue, which is a minor thing, but there's no need to set up a whole commission over something like that, and I'm sure that everybody has, not everybody, but if you have an issue that you want to bring up, we can discuss it and then decide whether or not to put it on the ballot for a charter change. I don't think we got to form a whole committee over this, especially when we just had one a few years ago. That's just my opinion.
And I also agree with the Clifford. Less is more.
So, Madam, if I may, I agree, actually, that I think if we have some issues that we need to bring to the attention, you know, of the voters, that we would probably have a good handle on it. And I think we have some other committees getting started now, and we're really making some progress in filling vacancies that have been, you know, out there for a while. So maybe leaving status quo for this particular thing, and then if we need to move on that, and it's overwhelming for us, we could always, you know, move forward with getting a review commission. But I agree right now that I think we have a lot of things on our plate, and
Doug, are there a couple of things off your hand, that you can think of? Is that why what motivated you? Is it something specific?
Just things that I heard from, you know, when I was, you know, campaigning, and,
Yeah.
you know, what I've looked at when I was reading the charter, and, you know, just comparing it, you know. I know there was a lot of discussion, you know, about, you know, can the town hire a firm or whatnot, and, you know, looking no further than Smithfield, right? They actually call out in their charter, you know, that, you know, the charter, you look at it and it says that it doesn't preclude the town from hiring a firm with it's like a paragraph long just for the solicitor. Some communities, it's like ours, it's just a sentence. And, you know, I think it's just looking at, you know, are we being specific enough, you know, because you look at that and, you know, it just, in the spirit of it, it's talking about a specific individual, you know, or are we being clear enough in terms of the latitude at which we can operate, and, you know, it does make sense. You know, that's just an example, like one off the top, you know, wasn't looking to get into a huge discussion tonight, just kind of see, you know, what the council's interest was. You know, I'm totally fine with us doing it as things come up, and, you know, maybe putting it on the agenda for the spring or something like that. But, you know, I didn't want to have the solicitor go through the process of drafting a resolution. I know he's busy as well to create a new commission if the council didn't want to do it. So I just wanted to get feedback on this one first.
Okay, so we won't be taking any action on this one tonight? Okay. Next item is bills and invoices, discussion by council vote or other action on Smithfield School Department.
No, you skipped
Oh,
one.
sorry,
Yeah.
skipped one. Discussion by council vote or other action on resolution affirming / reauthorizing and amending municipal building review task force committee. I put this one on the agenda just because of the fact that Mr. Vadney is on the municipal building review task force committee. He's instrumental in that committee, and he's no longer a council member. So he would just be a sitting member of that committee. So there was just some changes here saying that Town of Smithfield and shall be appointed by the town council, one of which may, but is not required to be a sitting council member. That was the purpose of this resolution. And I don't think anything else had changed on it, so that was just modifying the fact that Mr. Vadney could still be a member of this committee. That was the purpose of this.
And Madam President, just to make clear, rather than maintaining the existings of the committee as constituted, that was reaffirming that, because the last resolution had said they continue to exist unless dissolved to the council, and that's because of the nature of their work, that they were involved in the project, and then the council wanted them to continue with that project
Mhm.
and keep that committee together. So that's why this is an unusual, this was originally a 60-day committee.
Right.
It turned into, now,
So-
like a half dozen years.
Yeah, may I?
Mhm.
So this is basically, the only change was that, what's in italics, which is, which may be, but is not required to be a sitting council member. So it still would be for the projects that the original group that was put together is still working on or will be working on until their completion.
Well, yes and no,
Okay.
because there's two ordinances. The 2016 ordinance was specifically related to a bond issue.
Correct.
Then in 2018, their role was expanded to any municipal project.
Hmm.
So they were reaffirmed and reauthorized to continue with that. So right now, the projects that they're handling, I believe, and obviously we have the chairman here, he could talk about that, but they would be handling any project referred to them by the council. But that's what the 2018, it expanded their roles, and that's why I recited that in there. So you're right, this would be changing just that language to allow former Councilman Vadney to remain as a member, but it's also reaffirming and reauthorizing the existing membership until the council takes further action.
Okay.
Who's on now? Who do we have? We have you? Yeah.
You want to say the name? John Perry, Dave Chamberlain, who else?
Yeah?
Terry Barnum, Paul Vadney,
Oh, okay,
and Paul.
okay.
Okay. Okay.
So is there any further discussion on this? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept the change made to the resolution?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the change, reaffirming, reauthorizing, amending the Municipal Building Review Task Force Committee with the change that states shall be comprised of 5 members who shall be residents of the town of North Smithfield and who shall be appointed by the town council, one of which may, but is not required to be, a sitting council member.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, bills and invoices, discussion by council vote or other action on North Smithfield School Department invoice number 900-25148 to STV DPM, which is in the amount of $608.
I'll make a motion to approve invoice number 9002548 in the amount of $608.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just wondering what this, is this a final bill for this report? Or
No.
is this something that, Madam Finance Director?
This was a contract that we approved for the school department to sign back in August before you were on council, and the approval was for $35,000. The remainder was supposed to be paid by the school department. So we split it almost in half. So this is our portion, and it's coming out of the school revolving account. It's an account that we're holding for them. We already have a PO and everything, the contract's been signed, so this is just going against the purchase order. And it's already been approved by the school committee. So it's coming to you for approval of payment.
So, from what it's saying here, there's a contractual amount of $76,240.
Mhm.
The amount of the current invoice is $608. Will that be the final invoice, or is that, no?
No,
Okay.
no, they still have more work to do. They're working on the windows, so, no. That won't be
Thousands-
final. This won't be a
thousands
final.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I think this is the first invoice we paid from our $35,000.
Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
have a little way to go.
Are they always so behind in invoicing?
Yes. If you look at them, they're from July and August. I'm not sure if it's the company or if it's whoever's receiving this originally. So I can't really blame the company, so I'm not sure. I've have stressed my concern with this because it affects year-end. It's affected my year-end last year to the point that I had no choice but to pay in the current year because we closed our books. But I don't think it's been rectified.
Okay.
Well, if we can help you with that, let us know, please.
I will. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to pay invoice number 9002548 in the amount of $608 to DPM.
That's a motion, is there a second?
I think we already had a motion, right? I made a motion,
Oh,
so
you
we
did.
were under
Oh my
discussion,
gosh.
yeah.
Just making sure.
That's okay, that's good.
All right, so Claire seconded.
Oh, yeah, you second both, I think, yeah, okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Absolutely.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. And then invoice number 900254451 to STV DPM in the amount of $711.52.
I'll make a motion to approve invoice number 900254451 in the amount of $711.52.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Next one is executive session. Discussion by council vote or other action on Rhode Island General Law 42465A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation or potential litigation. 1, John J. Russo versus Town of North Smithfield, by and through North Smithfield Town Council, Paul Vadney, Paul Zelinski, Claire O'Hara, Terry Bartamoli, and Douglas Ogier. Case PC 2019-5003. Green Development LLC, DBA Wind Energy Development LLC, and Ruth S. Pacheco Living Trust versus Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Cynthia DeJesus in her capacity of Finance Director for the Town of North Smithfield. Robert Nigerian, Paul Pasquarello, Michael Amalafatino, Mario D'Annunzio, Vincent Marcantonio Sr., Scott Martin, and Gail Denomey in their capacities as members of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Case PC 2019-9395. Silver Pines Condominium LLC versus Town of North Smithfield. Case PB 20045242. Narragansett Improvement Company versus Town of North Smithfield. Case PC 20087468 and PC 20083674. Jane Doe versus Town of North Smithfield. Case PC 2014-6081. Rockcliffe Farm LLC versus Town of North Smithfield. Case PC 2017-0962. Jason Boudreau versus Town of North Smithfield, case PM 2018-6290. Bruce and Mary McGee versus Town of North Smithfield, case PC 2017-5173. And Bruce and Mary McGee versus the Zoning Board of Review of the Town of North Smithfield, case PC 2017-5631. Residents at Smithfield Mill LLC versus Town of North Smithfield, case PC 2018-2240. Dominic Pratt versus Town of North Smithfield, Superior Court number PC 2013-4527. And Mark Morris versus Town of North Smithfield, Superior Court case PC 2013-4528. Dudley Development Corporation versus Jennifer St. George in her capacity of tax assessor for the Town of North Smithfield, case PC 2022-5064. Leonard Pezza and Constance Pezza and Material Sand and Stone Corp. versus Town of North Smithfield, case number 99-1811. Material Sand and Stone and C. Pezza Sons versus Town of North Smithfield, case 91-5374. Bel Air Realty LLC, Anthony J. Devlicaro versus Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Robert Nigerian in his capacity as Chairman of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Scott Martin in his capacity as Vice Chairman of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Paul Pasquarello in his capacity as member of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Michael Amalafatano in his capacity as member of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review. Gail Denomey in her capacity as member of the Town of North Smithfield Zoning Board of Review, Cynthia De Jesus, intercapacity of town treasurer for the town of North Smithfield. Town of North Smithfield as a municipality, case number PC 2022-00446, and potential litigation. We have a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.